International human rights advocacy is a very important topic, not only for people in the third world, but for people all over peoples all over the world. Um, there's an organization, a set of organizations called NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who generally take up the cause of poor people in the country in which they work. And when I say take up the cause, they take up the cause in the sense that they may litigate on their behalf, or possibly they may simply conduct investigations, do research, and try and bring to light some of the human rights abuses that may exist in that particular country. The United States participates in this. We fund a lot of human rights organizations abroad. Unfortunately, we don't fund human rights organizations in the United States, which of course needs this kind of work just as much as anybody else does. Now, an international human rights legal organization has the particular task of trying to resolve the dispute, sometimes through litigation, by going to either the domestic or international courts. Now, in many countries, the domestic courts are simply not accessible. They're dysfunctional, they're corrupt, impunity is very strong, and as a result, it is seen as being futile to try and access those courts. And even if you do access the court, you may sit there for years without getting any decision. And as a result of that, many human rights lawyers go to the international or regional fora. In the Americas, the forum is the Inter-American Court of Human Rights in San Jose, Costa Rica. A prerequisite to jurisdiction in the Inter-American Court of Human Rights is that you pass first through the the Inter-American Commission for Human Rights, which is based in Washington. The Commission will receive your dossier, will review it, will conduct any investigation they need to conduct, and then they will make a decision, and sometimes it takes them a long time. They will make a decision as to whether or not the case does in fact merit going to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. If the case goes to the court, there is a public set of hearings. There may also be further investigation and research. All parties can be heard from. And the court can issue a decision, usually which calls for the payment of money damages for people who've been aggrieved by human rights violations. Unfortunately, the court has no enforcement power. And so if a particular state, if indeed the state is the defendant, if a particular state chooses not to pay the damages, then the court has no alternative other than to basically denounce the country before the Organization of American States, which is the funding and the parent body of this particular Inter-American Court. There are several Inter-American Courts for Human Rights around the world, not enough, but the situation is relatively similar. You bring the lawsuit, and if the country refuses to pay, for example, the United States does not participate, then you can denounce the country in the international forum, and that may serve as some kind of an impetus toward a solution of the problem. Otherwise, if you don't go to the international forum, you may choose to exercise your rights under a United States statute, which is called the Alien Tort Claims Act. The Alien Tort Claims Act gives a foreign national the right to bring a lawsuit in the United States against an American company or the American government. The allegation has to be that this company or the government had committed human rights violations in the country of the plaintiff, let's say in Mexico. So if the American military were involved with the Mexican military, and that military was committing human rights violations, then anybody who's been aggrieved by that, somebody who has suffered some damages, could bring a lawsuit in the United States as a plaintiff against whoever it is that's been cooperating with the Mexicans. It's inexpensive, it's a long process, but there are some NGOs here in the United States that are available to do this kind of work for foreign nationals.